last years of the 19th century, that human affairs were being watched from the timeless worlds of space. No one could have dreamed we were being scrutinized as someone with a microscope studies creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. Few men even considered the possibility of life on other planets. And yet, across the gulf of space, minds immeasurably superior to ours regarded this Earth with envious eyes. And slowly and surely, they drew their plans against us.
Broadcasting live
from a tiny studio somewhere in North America.
This is Dark Matters Radio Live. And now I give you your host,
the silverback of ufology.
Here's Don Ecker.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of KGRA's Dark Matters Radio. I am your host. My name is Don Ecker, although you probably know that. And tonight, I think we're going to have one rip-roaring show. I called up the gentleman who is my guest this evening, this week. He's a man that I've known for closing in on almost 30 years. Has been a national security wonk, a reporter, a writer, spent years in Foggy Bottom, and for you folks in Rio Lindo, that's Washington, D.C., although he has relocated to the middle of the United States these days. And what I talked to him about was something that I think all of us have a burgeoning concern about. Now, before I get into that, let me tell you about a little something that happened last evening. At the end of last year, I was elected to our community homeowners type association. We have meetings every month. Basically, I live in an area that over the past, well, as I've discovered, over the past 25, 26 years, we are prone to natural disasters out here. Mostly it's been in the realm of wildfires, fast raging fires twice in the last, well, since 2008 and again in 2017. My wife, Vicki, and I were forced to flee our home with our dogs, a few possessions that we grabbed, and thank God that our home was never substantially damaged. Well, the very first time when it happened in 2008, for 3 days, I was in a quiet stage of melting down before I knew that we were going to be okay with the house. Now, as a result of that, last night, we were having our monthly board meeting, and we had a representative from the county supervisor's office show up to basically, we talked to them about some local concerns, including some road repairs in our area. We live in a very rural area, literally right off of the national forest. Now, during that period of time, and if you pay any attention to the news, you are aware that Los Angeles, and we are in LA County, Los Angeles has a horrible homeless problem. You probably have seen photographs down in LA proper itself with the homeless camped out on the streets, used needles everywhere. the homeless, as a matter of fact, defecating in the streets, which, let's face it, that's a hell of a health hazard. Now, as it turns out, probably 5 to 10 minutes from my home, if I were to go down our road to Foothill Boulevard and turn west, within about 3 minutes, there is a new massive homeless encampment. Now, a lot of people are very concerned about that because the majority of those folks that are living in the homeless encampment are dealing with issues of mental illness and basically drug addiction. So here's this guy. We're talking about various things. One of the things that we talked about were the wildfires, because weekly, literally every bloody week, there's a fire that breaks out right around the homeless encampment. Now, if you know anything about California, you know we have been financially pushed to the wall because of all the wildfires. As a matter of fact, we only have 2 seasons in California any longer. We have spring and we have wildfires, and that's been our 2 seasons. So the fire department has to rush down there, put the flames out. The cops, well, basically their hands are tied. They can't arrest these people. They can't, I mean, you know, it as a former police officer myself, it makes me nuts. So I had a perfect opportunity. Here was this man from the county board of supervisors representing Representative Catherine Barger. She's not there, but he was. So I asked him, I said, you know, look, as a former medically retired law enforcement officer, I've got a question for you. We've had these problems with these fires breaking out at the homeless encampment, but I have a question dealing with another issue. The issue is coronavirus. Now, in Los Angeles, in the homeless encampments, we have had disease break out that has been, up to this point, practically totally eradicated from North America, from the United States at any rate. But leprosy has popped up, and a number of other diseases, chickenpox, and measles. And of course, there's a large swath of the population that are protesting against vaccinations for kids, you know, going to school and what have you. And I said, I understand all that, but look, when you have a big homeless encampment, sir, you also have a problem with sanitation, primarily human waste. Human waste has since been determined to carry coronavirus. So what is basically the county doing about that? And we went into a spin cycle, which is, to tell you the truth, it's exactly what I expected. So I call my guest, and we're talking this morning about these various issues. And I said, well, it's time for you to come on the show, and we'll kick it around. My guest tonight is a longtime colleague, going back, like I said, almost 30 years, Mr. Anthony Kimery. Tony, it is a distinct pleasure having you on. And like I said, Tony has been doing the national security beat for a very long time, and he has coming out, premiering in the next week or so, a new website, which I'm going to have Tony tell you about, which will be dealing with national security issues and analysis. Tony, it's a great pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Don. It's a pleasure to be back on, and it's always a pleasure to be back with you.
So, like I said when we spoke earlier, I want to kick around this deal with the coronavirus. Now, about 2.5 hours ago, my one co-host, close friend, very close friend of mine, Mr. Mark Center, called me up and he said, hey, Don, he said, with tonight's show and what you're going to be dealing with, I just heard something on which, incidentally, is our largest radio station in Los Angeles, KFI. He said they had a news story on there which will make your eyes roll. And I said, what's that? He said, well, 8 travelers, 8 guys from L.A. just came back from Italy. And I said, what were they doing in Italy? I thought it might be an exchange program or something. Oh, well, they were all on vacation, but I'm gonna check to see what the real deal was. And I said, well, okay, what about them? He said, well, they tested them when they came back, and all 8 tested positive for coronavirus. And I went, Tony, whoa! So this stuff must be contagious up the backside, huh?
It is an extraordinarily contagious, novel new virus which no one has any immunity to. The big problem with it is that you can be asymptomatic, meaning showing no signs of illness. There are numbers out there, but it's at least 2 weeks that you can be asymptomatic and be contagious, infecting everybody around you, because this is an aerosolized disease. It can linger in the air. And there are some indications that some people can be asymptomatic and showing no symptoms for perhaps as long as 27 days.
Oh,
this is a very unusual virus in that you can be asymptomatic for that long, but also be shedding the virus, be spreading it around. I fear it's going to get much worse before it gets better. We're at a point now where we need to stop being reactive and start being proactive. Now, let me just give a little background.
Tell us about your mentor that you were telling me about this morning.
Yes, I studied under the late Dr. Graham Laver personally. It was like going to class, and one person going to class to a professor. Dr. Graham Laver was probably one of the world's leading virologists. He was the one who identified the fact that influenza actually originated in birds. He was responsible, along with a colleague, of developing the first vaccines. His work led to the development of the antivirals Tamiflu and Relenza. So I got a very, very personalized academic background in virology, infectious diseases, pandemics, preparedness, and everything that goes around it from Dr. Laver for well over a year. So I can speak about these things with a high degree of confidence. And I know a lot of people who are in this business, so I can speak about it. I just wanted to throw that out so people don't think that there's just I'm someone that just talks about it. I do know what I speak. I think that in the United States, we've been very lackadaisical as opposed to some other countries like South Korea. They've done a phenomenal job of testing. They've tested well over 140,000 people, which is more than the actual confirmed cases around the world. Today, there were supposed to have been 1.5 million testing kits made available to every state, which could be, the test could be performed at certified labs and clinics in communities in every state. Well, that's not going to happen. Maybe next week, sometime, there may be less than 500,000 kits made available throughout the United States. So I suspect very strongly within 2 weeks, 3 weeks at the outset, once these tests are begin to be performed, that we're going to see a very disconcerting number emerge of people who are infected in the United States, meaning that those people being asymptomatic, being contagious, not even knowing they have the disease, are walking around spreading it. The mortality rate, we still haven't got a good fix on. The World Health Organization is now putting it at around anywhere from between 3.5% to 5%. And there are clusters around the world where the virus seems to have mutated, such as in Iran, Italy. The fatality rate, I believe, is probably close to around 3.5%. Seasonal influenza, in comparison, is 0.1%. So this is a many magnitudes higher mortality rate. Typically, the people who are dying do have pre-existing conditions, illnesses, weakened immune systems, but we're also now seeing younger and younger people becoming very, very sick, and while others don't. It just depends on the type of the strength of your immune system, and whether you have underlying what we call comorbidity illnesses that can contribute. I'm very fearful for places like Kenya, which has an extraordinarily high rate of HIV, untreated HIV people, which means their immune systems are just shot to hell. And they're going to be dying in tremendous numbers. South Africa is another place where there's, I think, around 20% of the population is HIV positive, and it's probably higher than that. Not everyone is being treated. So, when you start having community spread, cluster spreads in places like that, it's just going to start growing exponentially.
Well, let me ask a couple of questions, because what a lot of people may fail to realize initially are the far-ranging effects of something like this, Tony. For example, I was not aware until this story basically broke in the national and international news that a huge percentage of our pharmaceutical industry moved out of country, and in places like China, where we were basically being shipped the drugs that many of us have to take every day as prescribed by our doctors and family physicians. I did not know that. Now, to me, that bespeaks of an absolutely moronic move on somebody's part. Can you go into any of that with any degree of certainty and explain why something that egregious would have happened?
It's the way corporations have decided to operate without taking things like this into consideration. Back when we had the H5N1 pandemic, H1N1 was basically a variant of what was called swine flu. We were supposed to have spent money and moved towards cell-based vaccine manufacturing. Well, that hasn't happened. In fact, FDA only recently is to the point where it is going to let go of the first cell-based vaccine, but it's not for this. We're not going to see a vaccine for this for at least a year and probably longer than that. And then there are no antivirals. There is an antiviral that is being tested, but it's 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, perhaps a year away. The antivirals for influenza, Tamiflu, Relenza, they have no effect on this particular virus because it's not an influenza virus. So we have a supply chain problem. It's based on just in time. Masks, respirators, ventilators we have shortages of. Our healthcare system is not equipped for surge, which means large numbers of people showing up at clinics, hospitals, emergency rooms, trauma centers. We don't have surge capacity. My colleagues and I that know about all of this, we've been screaming till we're blue in the face about this for the last 10, 15 years. Money had been appropriated at one point, but nothing has been done. We do have a strategic national stockpile, but it's classified. We don't know really what's in it. There was an order put in recently for 500,000 N95 masks, but they're going to go towards the first line of defense, which is your doctors, your nurses, your healthcare providers, law enforcement. The public's not going to have access to those. And speaking about N95 masks, and there's an N100 mask, which is the best, but the N95 mask will possibly work. It has to be fitted, it has to be a tight fit, and it is not reusable. An N95 mask has a duration of maybe 3-4 hours because you're exhaling into it, it gets moist, and you have to dispose of it. Well, it's probably going to be contaminated because you've been wearing it around contaminated or infected people, which means that it's going to have to be disposed of in a biohazard protocol manner. So there's just not enough of those to go around. 500,000 is not going to do it. If you're a frontline person and you're in a highly contaminated environment, you're going to have to get rid of that mask in 3 or 4 hours and put on another one for another 3 or 4 hours. You can see where I'm going with that.
Sure.
And our ventilators, hospitals do not have enough ventilators, and you can't just get on the phone to a manufacturer and order one. It's just not going to happen. So when this thing really gets out of control, triage, people they're going to have to make some very, very tough, gut-wrenching calls. Who gets a ventilator?
Let me ask you a question. The other day, Wednesday, I was supposed to go down to downtown Los Angeles to the VA hospital on Wilshire. I had an appointment down there. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, no, I'm going to cancel that, postpone it, and ask to be rescheduled. Because quite honestly, I didn't want to be around a large group of people a lot of people that were basically homeless. And I told my wife about it, and I said, there's just something hit me, Tony. And do you think that was a wise decision?
I think it was a very wise decision. These large groups of homeless people, I suspect many of whom, because of their drug addictions or whatever, have very compromised immune systems. They are going to be a breeding ground for COVID-19. If it gets into the homeless community, it's going to spread like wildfire. And they're going to be infecting everybody else. Because like I said, you're asymptomatic. You don't know you have it, but yet you do have it. And the entire time you have it, you're infected and you're contagious. You're contaminating other people. That's one of the odd, strange things about this particular virus. But viruses are the most adaptable and most mutating of pathogens that we have. And this thing is, I'm certain, has already mutated at least twice, which I think probably explains why there's different mortality rates compared to known infections and deaths in certain countries like Italy, Iran, and now we're seeing the same thing in France. China, the confirmed cases are plateauing, they're coming down, but that's because of the draconian efforts that they have taken to quarantine large areas. I mean, the Wuhan district, 11 million people you've quarantined, you've blocked off, and that's why we're seeing sort of a plateauing or a lessening of the daily totals of confirmed infections being reported in China.
Okay, hold the thought. We are up against the break time.
Gotcha.
Fortunately, I don't have too many that we have to deal with, but when we come back, I want you to finish your thought. Then I want to ask you a question that was basically broached on this program several weeks ago from an individual that knows a lot of the right people. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dark Matters Radio, brought to you by KGRA, your contact point to Point Strange. Tonight, my very special guest, longtime friend, associate, Mr. Anthony Kimery, and we'll be back with a lot more. Stick around.
Coming this April 10th through the 12th, it's the 33rd Annual Ozark Mountain UFO Conference. Find out the latest information from speakers like Whitley Strieber, David Marler, Garnet Schulhauser, Donna Lynn, Princess Janae, and more. Don't miss the Dinner with the Speakers banquet Saturday night and Sunday's Life in the Universe panel, hosted by George Norrie. Tickets are on sale now. Go to OzarkUFOConference.com. That's OzarkUFOConference.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Ew, yuck. They're unhealthy and gross. Bugs, I hate bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. From contact, it kills bugs. Plus, Orange Guard kills hidden bugs and keeps new bugs away for weeks. I know. I use Orange Guard. Plus, all of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally regarded as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It promotes a healthier planet, and here's a bonus. Orange Guard cleans where it's sprayed. Plus, it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard.
You can get Orange Guard at Ace Hardware. And listen, folks, Orange Guard is tougher than bugs, and it's safe to use. Go to orangeguard.com. That's orangeguard.com.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied. But you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with, you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
Now you have the inside contact for alternative talk radio. The Planet. KGRARadio.com.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, with my very special guest this evening, Mr. Anthony Kimery. Tony, right before we had to go to break, you were finishing up some thoughts, and I told you I had something I wanted to broach with you when you were done. Do you want to go ahead and finish up with what you were discussing?
Well, all I was going to say was, because of China's draconian, and they've had to, because of the size of their population, the draconian isolation and quarantine measures are working, and that's why the levels of confirmed cases, while they're still going up, they're plateauing and they're slowly coming down. In other countries like the UK, other places, the numbers are just rising. I mean, we've got thousands of new confirmed cases every day. At some points in the day, you may have several hundred reported within an hour. So it's obvious that there are people that have this. Like I said, they're asymptomatic. They don't know they have it, but they're contagious, and they're spreading it. There's people right now walking around all over the United States that have it, that are contaminating other people. And as I mentioned, once these tests get out there, we're going to see a huge spike in the number of confirmed cases in the United States, which is then going to lead to much more aggressive measures to try to isolate people, quarantine them, shelter in place. And that's what's going to happen.
Okay, I've been checking all the news services, and I saw some news stories today. For example, in Vatican City, one has been verified, a coronavirus, at least one. And if there's one that's been verified there, I'm sure that individual contaminated others. And basically, Mecca in Saudi Arabia has been shut down. They have totally shut down Mecca. Now, that is astonishing in itself.
It is, but there are good virologists all over the world that completely understand the seriousness of this. We've known that there's going to be another pandemic. It's inevitable. It's not a matter of when, if, or it's a matter of when. Some virologists, some very respected virologists, have said in recent days that they will not be surprised that if the numbers come in, 40 to 70 million people around the world will be confirmed infected. That does not mean all those people are going to die. Some people just have mild cases, like a bad cold. But others with coexisting conditions and weakened immune systems, those are the ones who are really at risk. And young children now we're finding are beginning to show very serious complications.
Now, generally, with something like this, they are not cross-species transferable, like to our domestic pets, our domestic animals, dogs, cats, etc. But I read a few days ago that there were at least one, possibly more, canines that were diagnosed with the coronavirus. Do you know anything about that?
I've read about that, and I've talked to some folks about that. It's still very dubious as to whether those were really actually positive identifications. I would be surprised if that's true. But then again, this is a very unusual virus. But like I said, all viruses are highly adaptable and highly mutable. They're unpredictable. You do not know what they're going to do. Now, all viruses do come from animals. Animals are the reservoir of the viruses that then become then transfer to humans and then become human-to-human transmissible.
Okay, several weeks ago, I had a longtime friend, colleague, and an individual I have known, actually, Tony, longer than I've known you, Dr. John Brandenburg, on the show. And one of the the things we discussed, he had just, at that point, he currently resides in California, had just returned from a trip to New Mexico, where he had been invited to meet in basically an ad hoc symposium among various friends, colleagues, and former working buddies with his many, many long years in government service, the Department of Defense, NASA, and so forth. Now, when Brandenburg got back, he had called me up. I had several things I wanted to speak to him about. And we started talking about the coronavirus. And he said, to tell you the truth, Don, he said, most of those people that I was just meeting with, we discussed that. And it was a general consensus that the coronavirus was, in fact, a designer virus that was probably created in the biowarfare laboratory, which basically is in Wuhan, China. And I said, oh, okay. Well, what do they think happened? He said, basically, and you got to remember now, let's go back months to a year. What has been going on in Hong Kong? Hong Kong has been basically in almost open revolt against the Chinese Communist government because of their increasingly restrictive policies and basically trying to put the people of Hong Kong under the thumb. And they've been reacting against it. They've had massive demonstrations, massive protests, even rioting over there, okay? He said, the thought was, and this is by no way, it's not proven, he said, but the thought was the Chinese might be considering sealing off Hong Kong and then releasing this virus there to, well, in effect, let's be honest, okay, let's talk turkey, to thin the herd out. But apparently, if that in fact was happening, some of it got away, and before you knew it, bang, Wuhan is infected. Now, you've got a lot of people you know. You've talked to a lot of people about these types of things. Does this sound too outside the box, or is that something that the Chinese, in fact, might have considered? And hey, I had my own experience with Chinese communists in Vietnam, but that's a story for another day. But I got to tell you, I don't have a lot of faith in the Chinese when they tell me something.
Well, you're not alone. Neither do I, and neither do most of my colleagues. I've heard the story that it was an experimental virus that was in a bat, and that somehow it escaped from the lab. We're still not certain which animal it actually came from. It being the kind of virus it is, probably did come from a bat, but it could have come from any number of the animalistic or the zoonic reservoir where viruses reside and then transmit to humans. I don't know. The virus does exhibit some very unusual qualities, but I can also attribute that just simply to due to the fact that viruses are, as I've said, are very, very unpredictable. They mutate, they adapt. They're very adaptable. That's what they do. They adapt to survive. With regard to using it to thin the herd, so to speak, in Hong Kong, the Chinese, they know that even if they did that and then they quarantined Hong Kong, it would not stay in Hong Kong. It would still get out. Viruses have this uncanny way of not staying contained, especially when it's become aerosolized like it is, and you have it for 2 weeks, a month, and you don't exhibit any symptoms. If it was a weaponized virus, it should be showing some different qualities, such as, okay, you can theoretically design a virus that attacks a certain genetic population, but this virus isn't showing that. It infects anybody who gets it. So I'm on the fence on that.
Well, don't forget, Tony, there are people that think, and this is going back to Cold War days, people in the Soviet Union then and people in the United States thought we could win a nuclear war. I mean, if you have people thinking that way.
Absolutely. In both, the United States and Russia both were involved in biological warfare experimentation. That's no big secret. One of my dear friends, Sam Faddis, who before he retired from the CIA was head of the Counterterrorism Center's WMD counterproliferation or terrorism unit, tracking biological, chemical, radiological, nuclear weapons getting into the hands of bad guys. We've known all along that the pathogens, biological agents, are our worst enemy, even for use by a terrorist organization or a rogue state. And both of us were on Joe Rogan's sci-fi series. That one season it was on, we were on an episode called Bioapocalypse, and we talked about these do-it-yourself biology labs that have sprouted up around the country and around the world, where people are going in, they're unsupervised, there's no security clearances, there's nothing. And they go in, pay a fee, and they muck around with creating what they hope is an altruistic discovery. But as we pointed out in the show, and Joe actually went into one of these labs at this building that we were at, and they're not safe. God knows what somebody could come up with, because with very little money, you can create your own lab. The CIA is determined, and it's been published, that things like smallpox, other dangerous viruses have actually been created from scratch. If you've got the right technology, you've got the right money, and you've got the right resources and people. So that's a big threat. People mucking around with this stuff and creating a completely new virus that nobody has any immunity to, which nobody has any immunity to coronavirus.
Going back to Vietnam, okay. The people I worked with in the intelligence stuff that we were doing was not involved with the CIA, but the CIA was everywhere. And I always, if nothing else, I always thought the CIA was totally on the American side. But in the last administration, they had a guy in charge, John Brennan, which I got to tell you, pal, I had no faith in whatsoever. And I'm just going to be very blunt. And just right up front, the son of a bitch voted communist back in the 70s, okay? And the son of a bitch is still running around today doing everything he can do to damage the POTUS. Regardless of personal feelings, this told me lots about the culture back in Foggy Bottom. Now, with that being said, what is your thought on how stable they are now?
You mean the agency as a
Absolutely. Absolutely.
institution?
Yes.
It has problems. Obviously. So does the Department of Justice and the FBI.
Absolutely.
You know, I know what you're talking about Brennan. You know, he self-admitted to not being a card-carrying member, but he has self-admitted to
close enough for government work, Tony. Close enough.
Yeah, he admitted to voting for Gus Hall and being sympathetic to the communist ideology. This was before he joined the CIA, and I've asked a number of my colleagues, because I was in counterintelligence for 7 years, and I've asked a number of my colleagues, how the hell did he ever even get accepted into the agency when they obviously asked him those questions? He obviously had to answer them because he had already been on the record. How did he get hired to begin with? I mean, who?
Well, I had to fill out those questionnaires before I got my top secret crypto clearance.
Yeah, and back in those days, it was the height of the Cold War. You're not going to hire somebody who's a self-admitted communist who voted for the Communist Party's candidate for president. And I've asked people that in the agency, they just shake their head and roll their eyes and put up their hands and, you know, I do not know. I have no idea how that happened.
Well, that grinds at me. Even now, it grinds at me.
It grinds at me too. I have no answer for it. And most of the CIA people that I know, they have the same questions.
Well, you know, the fish, Tony, rots from the top down. Okay, so that will tell you my thoughts on the last administration.
Well, our thoughts are pretty much much akin on that.
Okay, let's get back to the coronavirus. So, right now, if I said, let's say you and I were sitting in a friendly local pub, and we were having our fourth or fifth pitcher of beer, okay? And I looked at you and I said, okay, Tony, let's cut to the chase, pal. What is your worst case scenario with what's happening right now in the United States? What would you have to say?
Well, I would have to go back to the Spanish influenza of 1819.
1918?
And yeah, the 1917 to 1920 period. Actually, that virus did not start in Europe. It started at Camp Funkston at Fort Riley, Kansas, and was spread to Europe. And it forever changed the world. It killed, the high estimate is 150 million people. A lot of people put that number at a low, much lower, maybe 30, 40 million. But the best literature that I've seen puts the number at closer to 100 to 150 million people. That's a full-blown pandemic. That's what you're looking at. Worst case scenario. Immediately tens of thousands of deaths until it just starts escalating. Your supply chain breaks down. Our pandemic tabletop exercises show that probably 40% of the civil workforce will either be contaminated or just will not go to work. That same figure holds true for our healthcare system. Now you start having vital infrastructure services break down.
Banking?
Banking. Everything just begins to cascade downwards. It's just a spiral downwards. And we're in a technological age, which was much different than the Spanish flu back then, when the average life expectancy was 45, and still most of the country was rural. Today, just extrapolate those numbers to the population of the world now, and you've got your worst case scenario.
Okay, now the United States. Now, I mean, this may sound like we're really going out on a limb, but do you think it is conceivable? And I don't want to be a fearmonger about this. I really don't. But could it develop to the point where the federal government would make a decision to do something as drastic as declare martial law?
In the worst case situation, yeah, I can see that happening. It would have to, because you've got to be able to contain this, and the only way you can contain it is through quarantine, not letting infected people or people in a clustered environment where it's spreading out, because then they're going to be spreading it to other communities, and you're going to have more communicable locations spreading it. So it's going to have to be isolated. That's really the only way you can address a virus, is to isolate it, to quarantine it, to keep people who are infected from being out in the population.
Well, we've seen a cluster of deaths in Seattle right now.
Exactly.
Right. And now in California, we've had several verified individuals basically pass because of this virus. But California is a huge state with a massive population. I keep tuning in to get the bad news every day. I expect to see more. Already, LA and the state of California have both declared emergencies. But as long as the state authorities are going to allow things like these homeless encampments to proliferate, Tony, I don't see anything positive happening. Do you?
No, I don't, because those homeless populations are prime breeding grounds. If one person gets infected, it's going to spread throughout. And if they're not controlled, if they're not quarantined, it's called a wildfire situation in military terminology. Wildfire, which means it's out of control.
Yeah, and it's definitely. Well, I'll tell you, it wasn't until about 2 weeks ago. Quite honestly, I was kind of laissez-faire about all this. I thought at that time, well, it can't be that bad, can it? And I was kind of laissez-faire until this past week, and it really started to hit home. I think a lot of people are looking at it like that right now.
When it first broke out, I was concerned. And in fact, I could get affidavits for some people in late December, early January, who I told that this was a very serious situation, and I even made a prediction to some people that within the week we were going to see at least one confirmed case in the United States. Well, that happened 2 days later.
And then it just seemed to proliferate, didn't it?
It proliferated. Yeah.
Well,
because we didn't know just how virulent the virus is. We did not know at the time that you could be asymptomatic for up to 2 weeks. and be contagious, which is a novelty. That's a little unusual in the viral community, but that's how this virus has adapted and mutated.
Well, we're almost at the top of the hour, and my producer sent me a question he wanted me to ask you. He said, should bioweapons be banned completely if a virus can cause this type of pandemic and the effects, which is mild in comparison to a weaponized virus? Well, let's be honest. Even if we say, okay, bioweapons are banned, are they really banned? If we ban them, is North Korea going to ban them? Is China going to ban them? Is the former Soviet Union? Will the Russians ban them? Will Iran ban them? I mean, that's kind of a pie in the sky thing, I believe. You?
Well, everybody could ban them, but that does not prevent rogue states or terrorist organizations which have the resources to develop these kinds of weapons from doing it. Anybody that has a background in microbiology or virology and knows how to manipulate, how to deal with viruses, has the right equipment, has the lab, they can do it. How are you going to ban those people? You can't.
Well, I had a thought years ago. I don't think I'm going to broach it before the break because we've got a break in about 6 seconds. But I just might mention it when we come back. This is Dark Matters Radio. Tonight, my very, very special guest, Mr. Anthony Kimery. And we got a lot more coming up, including the premiere of his brand new website. We're going to talk about that when we come back. Stick around. We got a lot more. Oh, and there's a possibility here. I'm going to check, but we may throw the phone lines open for your call. Stick around.
Join me, George Norrie, in Indian Wells, California, for the 8th Annual Contact in the Desert UFO Conference, May 29th to June 1st. Contact in the Desert is an epic weekend of adventure filled with exciting explorations into UFOs, ancient alien civilizations, crop circles, forbidden archaeology, disclosure, leading-edge science, and the newest evidence of ongoing contact, sightings, and leading-edge science. This amazing weekend offers lectures and workshops, exciting panels, and a luncheon that I'm hosting. Contact in the Desert also features leading experts including Linda Moulton Howe, Paul Hellyer, Stephen Greer, Emery Smith, Russell Targ, Doc Wallach, Leslie Kane, and many important researchers and scientists from all over the world. With the breaking articles in the New York Times and acknowledged naval sightings, Contact in the Desert is your place for inside information. Join us at contactinthedesert.com to get your tickets today. It's time to make contact. That's contactinthedesert.com. Contactinthedesert.com.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Hi, I'm Whitley Strieber, author of Communion and a New World, lecturer and radio host of Dreamland Radio. Be sure to catch my show Friday nights at midnight Eastern Time right here on kgraradio.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
Do you recall back in the mid-'90s during the Clinton administration when people were receiving letters and packages in the mail with a white substance in it? Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
That was basically from one of your disaffected scientific types, wasn't it?
Actually, the FBI has never actually determined who did that. They did have one suspect, but it was not him, and they practically destroyed his life. They still haven't determined, at least they have not said so publicly, if they ever determined where this weaponized anthrax came from. I mean, they know where it came from, but they don't know who did it. At least they're not saying that publicly. It could still be classified. I don't know.
I was just notified that the first couple of minutes when we came back from the break, the stream went down. I don't want to be paranoid, but could we have upset someone, do you think?
No, I don't think so, because there's a lot of people out there with knowledge talking about this.
Okay, well then I'm not going to be paranoid.
I wouldn't go that far.
You've got a brand new website that you're working on right now that's going to be coming online, as you told me, in a week or so. What exactly do you have? What are your intentions for that, Tony, and what's in the works for it?
The site is called Intelliscopes. Putting a microscope to national security intelligence across the board. We're calling it Intelliscopes National Security News, Insight, and Analysis. Because my colleagues, many of whom have worked with me in the past, have come back on board. We've got some really heavy hitters that are writing on a variety of topics, everything from this subject to counterterrorism, to everything under the sun. But most of it's going to be very deep dive, detailed, in context and perspective stories from experts, not journalists, but experts. Much like what I did when I was editor of Homeland Security today. But we're going to take it to a new level, because there's just a lot of things out there that aren't being reported very well, aren't recognized, or just
let's be honest. National media is totally compromised, in my opinion. Would you say so?
Well, there's certainly not subject matter experts on a lot of things. They don't have institutional knowledge or institutional memory. And that's very important when you're talking about national security issues. I don't care what it is. If you're not a subject matter expert or have not been in it and don't have knowledge about it, you're not going to be able to report on it or even speak about it intelligently. Well, you can get on Google and Google all you want and think you're an expert, but you're not, especially if you haven't been in the community or been inside of a classified environment.
Well, that's the other thing. These California tech companies are skewered almost en masse to one side, and they are censoring basically people that may disagree with the take that the tech industries have already taken and not allow you to speak your mind. I mean, the whole freedom of speech thing is kind of going out the window, it looks like.
Yeah, there is a problem there. Now, what we're doing is it's nonpartisan. It's not a politically oriented one side this or one side that. It's strictly a nonpartisan a news media that we're developing. But we're going to be providing very serious information from some very serious authorities who already have turned in stuff. We're just now trying to get the website, the little issues taken care of. I think it's going to be very successful. I know what we've got coming down the road, and the vision I have for it, and the vision my partners have for it, and all of the contributing editors and writers and my colleagues who I've worked with who are going to be writing for it. We all believe in the same thing, and that's getting the most accurate information on whatever topic it is out there. A lot of it's going to be very unique, and it's just some things that you're not going to find anywhere else, and it's desperately needed.
Well, let me throw you a curveball. You can handle a curveball, can't you?
I can handle it.
Okay. I have been involved for, 3 decades plus in investigating unidentified aerial phenomena. I have been, for over the years, I have squared off with any number of people in and out of government, NASA, you name it. Because I know that there's something going on up there that they've been denying for 75 years, but it's plain as the eyes in your face that it's going on. Now, I said aerial phenomena. I did not say alien spaceships, although a lot of people believe that's in fact what it is, or at least some of it. Now, with that being said, for years, the government or the intelligence people, the military people, the NASA people have been saying, no. Come on, it's misidentified this, or it's misidentified that, or it's crazy people making up stories, etc. And then something very amazing happened, Tony. In December of 2017, the senior senator from the state of Nevada, who had basically just left office, came out, held a presser, and admitted that he had secured in excess of $20 million, which, hey, you and I both know that's barely a drop in the ocean, but still, $22 million is nothing to sneeze at for the Pentagon to study unidentified aerial phenomena that, in fact, may be a threat. Okay? Harry Reid said this, for God's sake. And then this television program comes on, fronted by a guy, a rock and roll guy, but he has some very impressive people involved with this, including an undersecretary of state for intelligence that has since left government service, a guy from Lockheed's Skunk Works, other scientists that are involved and have been involved in some very dicey intelligence things. Okay? I think you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Suddenly, this is no longer crazy talk. Then the U.S. Navy, we get these videos of whatever they are outflying our aircraft with impunity. And suddenly it made this stuff, at least on the surface, no longer crazy talk, but something inexplicable. Where do you come down on this?
We used to call operations, I'm considering this was an operation. We used to call these things covert, overt operations. My conclusion is that, yes, these things that were photographed, I know which incident you're talking about, and some others, and the way they've gone around discussing this and talking about it, I say covert, overt, in the sense that they're admitting it, but they're admitting it for a different reason. It's my considered analysis that they're telling our adversaries, we don't know what this is, but you know what we're saying is, which is we have these and we are controlling them, and this is our latest technology, without coming out and actually saying it. That's my take on it. We've actually got some pieces that are in the works that we're going to be publishing on this very issue.
So your contention is that this may be terrestrial-based technology that we've made major breakthroughs with?
Major breakthroughs, and that this is a way of letting our adversaries know that we have these technologies. Like I said, we used to call these covert, overt operations.
All of them?
I doubt all of them. No, there are some phenomena that I can't explain, and I don't think they can explain. But like the videos.
Well, back in 2004, okay, that group off of San Diego were conducting training missions out there. Now, if what you're saying is correct, then someone, somewhere in the high rarefied atmosphere had to give the order to release these technological marvels in the midst of a military training exercise involving the United States Navy.
Absolutely. And it's been done. It's been done before.
It could have led to some serious consequences.
It could have, very easily. But this type of activity has occurred before, to see just how responsive our forces are, at the same time letting our adversaries know that, hey, this is what we've got.
Yeah, well, I've thought about that, but I didn't really know where to come down on that. And incidentally, there were also a number of instances where this type of activity happened off of America's East Coast.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's happened in a lot of places. In fact, there are incidents that have never been reported exactly like this.
Now, with that being said, okay, one thing I've noticed with this To the Stars Academy series that was on the History Channel, in every episode of, I believe it was the 6 episodes they aired, they kept coming back to one drumbeat, a potential threat. Did you watch that series, by the way?
I watched some of the episodes. I didn't watch the entire series.
Did you pick up on that, the constant beating of a drum concerning a potential threat?
Yes, I did. It was quite blatant, actually.
Now, at one point, and I was sitting there considering this, Tony, and it came to my mind, what if, after 70 plus years, and my own personal experience with butting heads with people inside and outside of the military and intelligence establishment, what if they, the powers that be, were aware of a potential impending threat? a threat from without, not from within. How would they go about preparing the public? Would this be a way?
Knowing how certain agencies conceptually operate, I can see that happening as a slow way of trying to inculcate the public into understanding that there's a threat out there. We don't know what it is, but hey, it's coming our way. It's certainly a very good psychological tool for conditioning. I'll just say it that way, if that is the case.
Well, now, for the last few years, I have noticed something. I occasionally keep my eye on the ISS, the International Space Station. And of course, those guys and gals have a live feed up there. And on too many occasions to count, as they're doing whatever broadcast they want to do, sending the signal back to Earth, something inexplicable will fly into the frame. And suddenly the feed will be cut. Now, I've had my own experience with that going back to the early 90s with a story I broke involving the STS-48 space shuttle. And at any rate, we lost the feed. We lost the feed. Now, if it only happened once or twice, I could understand it, but it happens continuously. Now, that tells me one of two things. Either we have a secret space program of the highest intelligence authority that is flying around out there, probably with technology that would knock our socks off, or ET is coming back to look for a telephone to call home. Now, it's got to be one or the other. What do you think about that?
I'm not completely sold on the ET phoning home because I do know that we have some extraordinarily advanced technology that's being tested in the field all the time. I know engineers who have worked on some of these programs. Some of the technology would knock your socks off. And those fall into the category of special access programs, and they are highly classified. Not above top secret. They're just simply code-worded special access programs that you have a need to know to have access to. As you know, a TS-SCI clearance doesn't get you everywhere. You still have to have a code word access to go along with a TS.
Well, it doesn't get you anywhere if you don't have a need to know.
Exactly, and that's why you're read in, as they say, to certain code word special access programs because you have a need to know.
Okay, talking about SAPs, this is a good one. About a year or so ago, a story broke in the UFO press, if you will, that involved a former director of DIA and by the name of Thomas Wilson and a civilian scientist by the name of Eric Davis. Now, some of the names that were involved in this was Dr. Edgar Mitchell, former Apollo astronaut who went to the moon. Are you familiar with this story, Tony?
I am familiar with it, yes.
Good. I thought you might be. And basically, Wilson at one point discovered that there was an aerospace corporation out here on the West Coast that, now I got to be careful how I say this, that allegedly had some recovered technology. I wrote a paper on this, by the way, Recovered tech. I'm sorry.
Did the company start with a B?
The company was kept covert. Okay, nobody would own up to who this corporation was. But Wilson discovered it, and being the head of the DIA, he wanted to know exactly what was what. He started making some inquiries, was put onto the right track to call the security honcho out at this unnamed corporation, and was finally able to arrange a meeting where he was flown out. The meeting was held inside their vault, okay, and he demanded to know basically what the hell was going on. And they shut him entirely out. And he said, well, I'm the director of the DIA. I'm an admiral. Doesn't matter. You're not basically read into the program. You don't get to know squat. Well, I'm sure it wasn't quite that brusque, but in essence, that's what they told him. He was outraged.
It probably was that brusque, to tell you the truth.
Okay. All right. But he came back to the Pentagon prepared to raise holy hell. Somebody pulled him aside and said, do you like those 2 stars on your shoulder? Do you like your job? If you kick up a fuss, you could lose all of that. And basically, he admitted this to this scientist, Eric Davis, in a covert meeting they held inside of an automobile out here. And to make a long story short, Tony, the implication was that we absolutely do have recovered technology, but it's so far outside the norms as far as anybody discovering anything about it. I mean, they farmed it out to a civilian corporation with, well, you know how these things work, for God's sake. And basically, even I have my doubts if POTUS could find out what the hell was going on. What are your thoughts about that?
I'm not really surprised that a DIA director would not be given access to something like that. There are branches within branches of each of the services who have their own special access programs that are tightly controlled by those organizations because nobody else needs to know about them unless those technologies then come to the point where they are operational and at some point will have to be deployed. Then you're going to know about them. But until then, I can see a DIA director not having access.
Well,
things like that happen all the time.
Yeah, he's a pretty rarefied bird, though. Now, who would have the access to that? The Joint Chiefs of Staff?
Certainly the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Secretary of Defense, and certain lieutenant generals within Army intelligence. Little known fact, if you're a lieutenant general in intelligence, you're not included in the official cap that Congress has on how many lieutenant generals there can be. So if you're a lieutenant general in intelligence, Army intelligence, you're not counted. And basically, you can stay in for however long you want. If you want to stay in voluntarily, you don't have to necessarily retire. Or you can be asked to stay in. It's a very unique position, being a lieutenant general in intelligence. And those people would certainly know.
That's got to be a very, very heavy thing, though. Do you give credence to the fact that the United States government may have procured, through various and sundry means, examples of extraterrestrial technology that we currently hold? Do you think that's conceivable?
Hypothetically, theoretically, I suppose it is.
You sound like you're still highly skeptical of the possibility that we, in fact, as a human race, may have had contact with people not from this planet.
I am still skeptical. I am. Skeptical in the sense that I have an awareness of very sophisticated technologies that we have, we have it, but the military has developed that would seem to be extraterrestrial if one was exposed to it. That's the reason for my hesitation or my seeming slant towards skepticism, because it would be the equivalent of having a cell phone back during the Middle Ages. It would be like magic, and we do have that kind of technology that if people knew about it, they would say, well, that has to be extraterrestrial. We could not have developed anything like that. But there is technology we have that would be considered that way.
Well, when I made a conscious decision to become involved in this often crazy and lunatic field, okay? And yes, I said it, crazy and lunatic often. I did an intensive study on what happened from basically the Second World War up through what was then current, which at that point was the late 1980s. And I went back to some of the giants that originally were involved in this field, like Marine Corps Major retired Donald Kehoe, who was an Annapolis graduate, a former Marine Corps pilot who was disabled in an air crash, basically got out, became a very recognized aviation historian and writer, went to Annapolis with classmates like Admiral Roscoe Hillenkotter, who was the first director of Central Intelligence, the first guy in charge. They had an organization called NICAP, the National Investigative Committee on Aerial Phenomena, which were a genuine thorn in the side of primarily the U.S. Air Force at that time that was tasked with following this. Now, the reason I mention this are in some of Kehoe's writings, he mentioned basically, a lot of instances, but I'm going to just mention two, okay, that he reported on, that he got not from little old ladies in Peoria, Illinois, or some other place, but from military contacts. In about 53 or so, maybe 54, a B-29 was flying down in the Gulf of Mexico, and this was a prototype of one of the first AWAC-type aircraft that they were testing, which B-29, of course, was a late-developed World War II massive bomber. It was one of those aircraft that dropped the A-bomb on Hiroshima and then a couple of days later in Nagasaki. These were massive airplanes, had a lot of, for the time, technological capabilities, and suddenly they picked up and then saw with their own eyes a huge craft of some type, an ellipsoid-shaped craft, flying up into the sky. They tracked it going from what Kehoe said was 7,000 miles an hour, climbing while small disc-shaped craft flew into this thing as it was leaving the atmosphere. Now, my God, if that's true, that had to be breathtaking. And then one other thing that Kehoe reported, that along about 54, Pentagon radar people and astronomers detected two objects that came in and took up an orbit around. Now remember, the first artificial object to ever be sent into space was the Russian Sputnik in 57. Here were two objects, one at 400 miles out and one at 600 miles. The story broke. The newspapers reported that somehow miraculously, two asteroids were captured by Earth, took up orbits around the planet. And there were even scientists then that suggested, well, maybe, if we get a rocket and we can go out into space and we can orbit the Earth, maybe we could use these as a kind of mini moon to land on. Well, of course, it was all crap. Then these two things disappeared. Now, the implication, of course, is that these were artificial craft from somewhere else, because we couldn't put anything in orbit then, that might have been surveilling the planet. Now, what do you do with a report like that, Tony?
You would be very careful who you reported it to, because you probably would have your rank stripped from you. I guess I look at it this way. We've got, 200 billion suns in our galaxy, most of which probably have planetary systems. And the Hubble deep field photograph revealed 200 billion galaxies, each probably with roughly 200 billion suns and planetary systems. And it goes on forever, because that was just a small chunk of space that they had the Hubble fixed on for a period of time to be able to see all those 200,000 galaxies. It's inconceivable to me that we're not alone. There are other advanced civilizations out there, but then you get into the Fermi paradox. Okay, why hasn't someone contacted us? Why haven't we seen something?
Well, how do we know they didn't?
Yeah, well, exactly. And of course, there's all kinds of theories out there, revolving around the Fermi paradox about this and that. I don't know. If it's true, maybe it's like the prime directive in Star Trek. Don't mess with the natives who haven't developed warp drive technology yet.
Well, I've got another theory, but even though I had not yet opened the phone lines, we've got a phone call waiting. So let me go ahead and open the phone lines. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to speak to my guest, myself, or you have a question, a comment, or something else, give us a call at 855-472-5483. That's 855-472-5483, or conversely, 85 KGRA Live. And all of that is being brought to you courtesy of the Paranormal Radio app hotline. We've got Connie calling us from Las Cruces, New Mexico. Connie, good evening. What's on your mind?
Well, I am a colleague of Tony's. I'm the healthcare contingent of his. He's my editor. Tony and I have been, we're facing what I consider an existential threat here in the form of this virus for which this country is not prepared. The study that Tony helped with clear back in 2006 that we did for the CDC when I was CEO of a national nonprofit, a healthcare nonprofit, we studied whether trauma centers were prepared for an all hazards mass casualty situation in the U.S. And the average grade was C-. Now, since then, all of the drama of 9/11 is gone. We've had these, mass shootings. Those are every day. Orlando gets 55 patients, in one night. And nobody has the stores. Nobody has the staff. Nobody has the surge capacity, the beds. There is no place to put these people. And the lack of notice for those events really cripples things. So you have to have these plans. But what we're dealing with here is a rolling disaster, and the plans aren't there. The plans are not there for the equipment. We have a shortage of nurses in this country. We have a shortage of doctors in this country. And now we have the collapse of the rural hospital system, half of which have closed. So our lack of a comprehensive healthcare system that works for everybody and is ready for situations where we need to expand very quickly, that system is being tested now, and it's failing even worse than we thought it would.
Well, let me tell you a horror story out here in the Southland, okay, in Southern California. Over the last 15, 20 years, because of the massive influx of, I'm not going to say undocumented aliens, because I don't think that's what it is. They're illegals that broke the border. And of course, they basically been invited by the state, by Los Angeles, to take up residence here. Nobody knows how many there are. Nobody knows who they are. And every time one of those folks would have a skinned knee, a runny nose, a cold, whatever, they would show up at our emergency hospitals. And guess what? They ended up busting financially hospitals all across the Southland that basically went bankrupt and out of business.
There, though. Okay, I have direct experience. I was the administrator of ER and trauma at UC Irvine. Okay, Anaheim.
And you know what I'm talking about, don't you?
No. It was not like that. It was not like that. We had clinics set up. The county had clinics for these folks. They did not come to the ER except if we had someone who just simply didn't know how to handle this child, or they had bleeding of some sort. We had a fast-track unit so we could shoot them through there and get them out. But we were not, I wouldn't say our problem was that. Our problem was the uninsured in this country. The uninsured in this country, in the richest, county in California. Orange County, if it was a country, it would have a 13th GDP. So we were filthy rich, but you know what? The people on the bottom were basically not being cared for, and that was dangerous. And that's what you're talking about, the homeless here. This is dangerous, not caring for people, not having a healthcare system that is taking care of humans.
Well, a lot of those people, Connie, don't want to be taken care of.
Well, they will when they get sick. They come when they get sick. I've had them all. I ran the ER trauma program in El Paso. That's when Tony and I connected. We had them all. We had them from Juarez. We had them from everywhere. We had the heroin overdoses. But basically, you deal with it, and then you take care of the heart attacks, the traumas, everything else. And let me tell you, the most uninsured, trauma. The most uninsured in this country of any patient population that you get is trauma. And it's because it's young guys who think they'll never get hurt, never get killed, and they'll take out a whole carload of people and come in alive, throwing up beer in your Birkenstocks. So I'm telling you, as a person who has been at the front line, that it's more complicated than that. and the complications are going to kill people. The fact that we have put nothing into preparedness, zip, despite having hurricanes, tornadoes, all of these problems all over the country and mass shootings. Now, we've added that to what I dealt with. So we are like way out of our league. And we do not have the capacity.
For the people out there, I just want to say Connie is one of the nation's leading authorities on America's trauma care system, and she does know what she talks about.
Thank you, Tony. And I really appreciate this show tonight. The information on coronavirus is absolutely essential, and it is a strange duck. This isn't fitting any of the templates that we have seen before. And Tony, babies and children aren't getting this. With the flu, it's usually the very old and the very young. So this is news too. The very high mortality rate in the elderly, and it's skipping the young generation. I have one question for you, and I'll let you guys go. I just realized that today is the beginning, because we're a college town here, this is the beginning of spring break. Colleges all over the United States are going to turn loose hundreds of thousands of kids, and they're going to go to California, and they're going to go to Florida. My friends down there are, already preparing for that. What is that going to do to the transmission of this virus?
Like I said earlier, Connie, once these tests are finally made available, we're going to see a huge spike in the number of people that are actually contaminated or infected, and those numbers are going to be so high that our healthcare professionals who are responsible for tracing are going to be overwhelmed. They're not going to be able, in my opinion, to be able to contact trace everyone that all these huge numbers of affected people have been in contact with, and then we're going to start seeing larger and larger cluster community spread of the virus.
Well, they're going to be coming back to cities like ours. New Mexico is very proud of the fact that we have no infections yet. We don't know because we don't have any test kits. But I will tell you, when they come back, they'll be bringing it with them. So, all around the country, these little, university towns that have very few hospitals, scarce medical resources, they're going to be out there on a limb too, and no one is going to come and help them because we're all in the same boat.
Yeah, and you made a very good point about the surge capacity. We don't have it. The shortages of everything. When the system becomes overwhelmed, that's when everything starts to break down.
Well,
we're going to find out here very soon where the rubber hits the road, aren't we?
I think so. And
we are very soon.
My one last thing is that we have a thing in healthcare called mutual aid. And when 9/11 hit, we had Bellevue and we had our other St. Vincent, waiting for patients. But hospitals all over New Jersey, everybody else, people started pouring in, medical folks pouring in. Same thing in New Orleans. That is not going to happen because everybody's in the same boat. So that's what I have to say, and I wish you well. Thank you very much for having me give a few minutes.
Well, Connie, thank you for calling.
You bet. Have a good evening. Thanks, Tony. Bye-bye.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we still have roughly 15 minutes. If you'd like to call in and speak to my guest, give us a call at area code 855-472-5483, and it's 85 KGRA Live. And so what? She's one of your writers, Tony?
Yeah. She's going to be doing writing for me. I've known Connie since I first blew the whistle on the trauma and trauma care in the very first issue of Homeland Security Today. Then I worked with her on a CDC funded report that showed that we were the trauma care system in the country is completely was then still is completely unprepared for a mass casualty event, whether it's man-made or whether it's not man-made.
Well, of course, we all hear about the CDC here in the United States continuously, but around the world, it's the WHO, the World Health Organization. Now, I've got to say that I've read some very disconcerting things about the WHO. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, you might want to take a look at the background of the director of WHO. That might give you some
that's what I was talking about.
The WHO is beholden to special interest. And you have to remember that very first meeting that they had when they were discussing the coronavirus, whether they were going to issue a pandemic national global emergency, I fully expected them to do it. But if you'll recall, the committee was split right down the middle. So it was up to the Director General to make the decision. But the fact that they were split should tell you a lot. And that was back at the beginning.
Well, not to mention the Chinese government also went out of their way to conceal all of this for as long as they could. They still won't allow the CDC to enter China to confer about this. Now, I'm shocked that nobody is really talking about that.
Well, that's something that we're going to be talking about, and it won't be speculation or innuendo. What we're going to be doing is all based on fact. It just, facts are hard to come by unless you know what you're looking for, or you have the right authorities and experts who know how to find it, put the pieces together, see the big picture, pattern recognition, and connect the dots.
Yeah, it's. Well, what's your time frame now with how all of this is coming down? I'll tell you the truth. One of the things that has me personally extremely concerned are the far-ranging economic effects that this potentially is going to have for the economy, not only here, but worldwide. This could be a real ball buster, couldn't it?
Absolutely. You're getting back to a worst case scenario where everything just starts to cascade downwards. Already what's happened in China has had a huge impact. There are oil tankers that are just parked off the coast of China. Their production capability has gone down about 40%. I think they're starting to reopen some of their plants, but cargo containers, that are loaded, that have not been unloaded, has put a burden on the maritime distribution chain. Shortages of oil tankers now. This is what you're going to see if the really, really worst case scenario plays out. The supply chain is just in time, which is a huge mistake. Everything should be in inventory, but that's not the way the world economy has gone as far as manufacturing capability is. It's just in time. And when you're in a situation and you need something just in time and it's not there because everything's gone downhill, well, let your imagination run wild.
Yeah, that's pretty terrifying. But currently, we domestically don't have, and if I'm wrong, tell me, please. We don't have long-term energy concerns here in the United States with our production, do we?
No, we don't. Actually, the United States is the largest producer of oil and gas right now. We've become a net exporter of oil and gas right now. Energy independence as far as oil, petroleum, natural gas, we're pretty or independent. We're independent on that. I'm not too worried about that. But, we also provide a lot of oil and gas to our allies. That's going to be a problem. There could be a shooting war erupt over this, just over natural resources. Like I say, if you get down to the worst case scenario, you're looking at civilization collapse. I'm not talking about an Earth extinction event, but it's not going to be pretty if it really does play out that way.
Damn, I didn't expect to hear that from you.
Well, that's a worst case scenario.
Yeah, sure, of course.
If you go back, we've got a story coming up by a brilliant man who's been in public health preparedness. He's gone back and he's at the Congressional Library and has been looking at all of the newspapers from back during the period of the 1917-1918 Spanish flu pandemic, because that was a time when there were more newspapers ever. And it's remarkable what he has uncovered. And he tells that story, but he also puts it in the perspective of the lessons learned and how they could be applied now. It's a phenomenal research project that he's undertaking. He's actually writing a book about the whole thing, but he's excerpting a lot out of it for telescopes when we launch.
Well, my God, people today, Tony, are basically ignorant of everything that has gone on before. American history is at haphazard at best being taught today. People have no conception of civics. There are a whole range of things. They're more concerned about the potential for man-made climate change than they are about things like this. And if you say the 1917-18, 1919 Spanish flu epidemic, I would guesstimate that 95% of the people would look at you like you sprouted another head. They don't even know what that is.
No, they don't. And that's what I was talking about earlier. It's a lack. Institutional knowledge and institutional memory has been forgotten, unless you're like me, who's been in this business, and that's what you live and breathe. And the same holds true within the journalism community, the media. They don't have subject matter experts. They don't have the institutional knowledge and memory, and that's why reporting is so bad today. It's just not there. You cannot put a beat reporter or an anchor that doesn't know squat about what he or she is talking about, because they don't have that knowledge. And expect to talk about it coherently.
Well, we're coming down to the very close of the show. I would like to, I don't have a date yet, but looking at how these things end up panning out in the next few weeks, I'd like to find out if you would be available to come back and give us basically an update on what you and your writers basically make of the coming situation. What is the, you don't have a firm launch date yet, do you?
Not yet. We're shooting for a week from today. We do have a placeholder up where people can go and read a little bit about it. It also takes you to a crowdfunding website we have. It's in telescopes.com, INTELISCOPX, in telescopes. with an X on the end, .com.
And I also have that link on my Facebook page, Tony.
Oh, right. Thank you. Yeah, and there's a link that goes to our crowdfunding website where there's a much longer mission statement, probably one of the best biographies that's ever been written about me by a dear friend, my business partner, and testimonials about me that they wanted to put up, but they'll be the very people, some of the people that will be writing for us, and I think if people read their bios, they'll be very impressed.
Okay, well, unfortunately, we are now out of time. Tony, this has been great. And incidentally, for all you people that have tuned in late or who were listening to the program and you experienced the dropping of the internet link, the show will be basically available in its entirety, probably in a couple hours on the KGRA archive website. Tony, this has been great. Thank you so much. Stick around for just a minute. And ladies and gentlemen, we will be back tomorrow with Mark and Rich and with our open line show. Hey, keep your eyes pointed up, your ear to the ground, and we'll see you then. Good night.